light.
The light?
Light.
Camera. Okay. Having adjusted ourselves with the different phone calls and the mask wearing, we'd like to take this time to welcome all of you. We are about to start, and the last time one of you should not go into the media announce. The Secretary General will be moving straight into the press conference. So I want to have you gear up for that. Chairman Emeritus, Chairman Lafayette Emmanuel Richard Gould, Secretary General, members of the National Executive Committee are present. Today, the Alternative National Congress has scheduled this day and time as a press conference to address a couple of issues within the CPP, and you will get to understand all of them. Without much ado, the indisputable national chairman and president of Anthony ALOYSIUSTOE will do the press conference, and Secretary General of the party. And so we'd like to take this time now to call on Anthony ALOYSIUSTOE, Secretary General of the Alternative National Congress.
Good afternoon and welcome, ladies and gentlemen of the press. Distinguished members of the Fourth Estate, partisans of the ANC and CPP, fellow Liberians, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. In recent weeks, the political leader of the All-Liberian Party, ALP, Benani Ure, alleged that the framework document of the CPP was altered by what Ure called nefarious and fraudulent individuals. But sadly and disappointingly, Ure did not indicate or provide any shred of evidence to substantiate his wild claims and allegations. None will he ever do so. He did not say exactly what was altered in the framework document. None will he ever do so. He did not say who altered the framework document. None will he ever do so. When Ure made those unfounded claims and wild allegations, he knew they were false and inaccurate. He knew that the framework document had not been altered. More importantly, Ure knew he was being disingenuous in what amounted to a lie. Yet, he made those claims and allegations. As we will explain in detail below, Ure made them because those false allegations foster his selfish political motive and interest. He made them because he was executing a political ploy in a playbook of lies and deception. Ure has one objective. That is, Ure wants to impede the quest of Alexander Cummings for the CPP standard bearership through dubious means. and he believes he can win by every shortcut method possible. This is what URE knows best. But far from URE's devious allegations, neither Alexander Cummings nor the ANC altered provisions of the framework document. In fact, no provision of the framework document was added or removed. There were no such alterations. No part of the framework document is altered. Never. These false allegations are hatched by URE for the benefit and to the full knowledge of a few individuals in the Unity Party, UP, supported by a few persons in the Liberty Party, LP, to kill the proverbial dog that must be guilty at all costs, even if the facts prove otherwise. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, these are the facts surrounding the framework document. On May 19, 2020, the final framework document was signed via Zoom due to the COVID-19 outbreak. Each political leader, party chairman, and their support staff were at separate locations during the signing and only connected via Zoom. Senator Lawrence of the Liberty Party was in Grand Bassa County. Ambassador Joseph Walker was in Pittsville. Mr. Alexander Cummings was in Cinco, and URE was presumably on his farm in Carisburg. Each political party had one original copy of the framework document and one signature page to sign on. After the signing and publication of the framework document, there was massive public backlash on the provision of the framework document indicating that employment will only be for new and visible members of the CPP. This public backlash prompted a need for a legal revision of the framework document in order to ensure that it met legal, statutory, and constitutional standards. All political leaders and party executives agreed that there should be a revision by relatively independent, reputable lawyers after the signing. Even URE recently admitted in an audio clip that all of the political leaders knew about and authorized a revision of by the lawyers. Ladies and gentlemen, for a moment, I want you to listen to evidence of URE in a video clip, in an audio clip, admitting to the fact that independent lawyers review amendments in the framework document after the document was signed.
The lawyers did do an amendment of.
I repeat that.
The lawyers did do an amendment of the framework document, and they did it under our advice and consent. The amendment copy, we have copies of.
Ladies and gentlemen of the press, you have listened to URE admitting to the fact that after the signing, they approved for independent lawyers to amend the document. The legal committee that was thus constituted, and upon completion of its review, submitted to the ANC an amended framework document as well as issues arising from the review. The lawyers made their initial presentation to the political leaders on June 19, 2020. On June 22, 2020, the then CPP chair, Mr. Alexander Cummings, submitted the amended framework document and the issues arising from the review received from the legal committee to the CPP National Advisory Committee, NAC, in a WhatsApp message to the NAC on January 2nd, 2020, Mr. Cummings wrote, "Colleagues, here is a document from the lawyers with the key issues they suggest we change in the framework agreement. I am forwarding next the framework agreement for each party's EC to review and approve. It is crucial that we stick to the timeline agreed for each party to submit their respective resolutions. We run the serious risk of not getting the CPP certified in time to register our candidates if we do not proceed," unquote. In this same WhatsApp message, Mr. Cummings also sent the agenda for a CPP meeting scheduled for June 23, 2020, to review and approve the revisions from the lawyers. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to show you evidence of Mr. Cummings' WhatsApp message to his colleagues. And it's marked Exhibit 2. Here is the evidence. On June 23rd, 2020, the legal committee made a presentation to the NAC at the headquarters of the Liberty Party. All political leaders were present. The parties reviewed the amended framework document from the legal committee and approved the amendments as submitted at that meeting. Also at that meeting, timelines for next steps were also reaffirmed. On June 25th, 2020, Mr. Cummings sent updates from the June 23rd meeting to all parties via WhatsApp, along with a reminder of the agreed timeline for the next steps as follows. For instance, parties' review of the legal draft was to run from Tuesday, June 23rd to Saturday, June 22nd, 2020. Submission of feedback from the parties was to be given no later than Sunday, June 28, 2020. Compilation of the feedback from the parties by the legal team was to take place from Monday, June 29 to Wednesday, June 1st, 2020. Joint ratification by all the 4 political parties was expected no later than Thursday, July 2nd, 2020. Submission of the resolution ratifying the framework document for each political party was to take place between July 3rd to July 5th, 2020. Accordingly, all parties submitted their signed and notarized resolutions on July 7th, 2020. The United Party's resolution has a notarization date of July 6, 2020, while Liberty Party and ALP's resolutions have a notarization date of July 7, 2020. In fact, the Liberty Party political leader personally signed and dated hers on July 1st, 2020, prior to notarizing their resolution. All parties submitted their resolutions to the ANC Secretary General during the week of July 6, 2020. See the 4 copies of parties' resolution marked in bulk as Exhibit 3. These are the resolutions from all political parties confirming, affirming, and verifying the framework document. This is a resolution from the ANC. Next is the resolution from the Liberty Party. Followed by the resolution from the All Liberian Party. And the resolution from the Unity Party. The Unity Party Secretary General, Mo Ali, was charged with the responsibility of getting the signatures for the framework document from all political parties. He did so and returned one original signature sheet to the ANC Secretary General, me, ALOYSIUSTOE, during the week of July 6, 2020, as a copy for the ANC. Some political leaders and party chairs backdated their signatures on a signature sheet to reflect the date of signing of the original framework document, which was May 19. The amended framework document, revised by the legal committee and approved by all parties on July 23rd, along with the ANC original of the signature sheet and the resolutions from all 4 political parties, was notarized and filed at the National Elections Commission of Liberia on the same date, same being July 14, 2020. We'll show you as evidence Exhibit 4 in our file of the document that was filed to the National Elections Commission of Liberia. One month later, on August 14, 2020, the CPP certification program was held, where all political parties were present, including URE. On the basis of the legal committee's revised framework document, notarized and accepted by the National Elections Commission of Liberia, the newly accredited CPP was allowed to field candidates, including Senators Abraham Darras DeLon and Yombi Kanga Lawrence. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, I want to reiterate that the framework document submitted by the legal committee, approved by all members of the CPP, and filed at the National Elections Commission of Liberia is not altered. All revisions made to the framework document signed on May 19 were as a direct result of the review undertaken by the legal committee. There were no provisions altered, removed, or added after the final revision by the legal committee and approved by all political parties. Copies of the legal committee final framework document and that filed at the National Elections Commission of Liberia are attached as Exhibit 6. This is the document that was revised by the independent lawyers, the legal committee, and the same document was filed with the National Elections Commission of Liberia as is. And it's marked Exhibit 6. CPP was thus certificated. One month later, on August 14, 2020, the ANC, upon completion of its 8-month tenure and as part of its turnover notes, submitted a copy of the framework document filed at the National Elections Commission of Liberia to the Liberty Party headed by Yombi Kanga Lawrence. The lawyers, the independent lawyers, the legal committee, also submitted a copy of their final revised framework document to the CPP chair, Senator Yombi Kanga Lawrence of the Liberty Party, based on her own request to the lawyers. The National Elections Commission of Liberia, also based upon request by Senator Kanga Lawrence, submitted a copy of the framework document it has on file. All anyone has to do to validate or refute the claims by URE is to compare the revised framework document submitted by the legal committee and approved by the parties with the framework document filed and provided by the National Elections Commission of Liberia. Yet, there you will clearly see that Ure's allegation is nothing more than cheap propaganda intended to harm and devalue the CPP. Again, recently, upon request by the four political leaders, the ANC submitted copies of the version filed at the National Elections Commission of Liberia, and all three political parties signed for their copies of the framework document, as well as copies of their respective resolutions. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, I now present you Exhibit 7 as evidence of the receipt by all three political parties of the version that was filed with the National Elections Commission of Liberia. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, these are the facts, and they are undeniable. For 16 months, the CPP has benefited from what Ure is now calling a fraudulent document. Since being certificated and on the basis of the framework document filed at the National Elections Commission of Liberia, the CPP was allowed to field candidates in several elections and won 6 senatorial seats, including the 2020 midterm elections that saw Senator Abraham Dawes Dillon and Yomni Kanga Lawrence re-elected. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, assuming for a moment, for the sake of argument, without admitting that a document filed with the National Elections Commission was altered, as claimed by Ure, this would mean that the very existence and legitimacy of the CPP and all elected legislators now hangs in question. Any attempt to invalidate the lawyer's amended version of the framework document, which is currently the version filed at the National Elections Commission of Liberia, by extension invalidates the CPP certification and invalidates all CPP candidates elected under this framework document. So while Ure and his cohorts are seeking to destroy Mr. Cummings, they are also destroying the CPP, the only hope of the Liberian people. And the more we delve into what has unfolded in the last few days, the clearer it becomes that this is the actual intent of Ure's sinister plan. What is even more interesting is that while Ure continues to lie and cause trouble in the CPP, nothing is being done to hold him accountable. This is a man who should not even be sitting at any table to discuss Liberia's future because of his evil past. Yet, he has been allowed to destroy the CPP. The United Party's political leader, Ambassador Joseph N. Burka, and Liberty Party's political leader, Senator Yomni Kanga, both know that Ure lied. Ambassador Burka remains content and appallingly silent in the face of evil lies against Mr. Cummings because it benefits him politically to make it appear as a fight between Cummings and Ure. But we are aware, and the evidence is irrefutable, that this is Ambassador Burka's proxy war against Mr. Cummings, being fought by a man called Ure with depraved indifference to decency, truth, and honesty. Senator Kanga Lawrence has compromised her neutrality and independence and instead become an underground instigator and co-conspirator in the campaign of lies against Mr. Cummings, leaking internal confidential CPP information and communication to the public, including Costa, to denigrate Mr. Cummings because she is working assiduously hard to become Ambassador Burka's vice president. It is a shame, I repeat, it is a shame that the plot to ruin the CPP is happening under her leadership. In furtherance of Ure's deadly playbook of cutthroat politics, his avowed loudmouth, ALP's wayward mercenary and Indian talk show host Henry Costa, best noted for lying, extortion, blackmailing, and psychopathic behavior, went on a rampage and accused Mr. Alexander Cummings of being a fraud, a cheat, and a criminal who fraudulently altered a framework document without any evidence to authenticate his usual diabolical lie. And while Costa is spreading his cooked-up lies about Mr. Cummings, Mr. Costa has never raised his voice to speak about Ure's known and documented activities, criminal activities, and records. What the leaders of CPP fail to recognize is that this loudmouth boy in Costa has taken money from the ruling establishment to blow up the CPP, an irrefutable point noted by Mosurado County District Number 10 Representative Honorable Yeke Koluba. Why is Costa insulting Cummings when he has never raised his mouth to Ure? Costa quoted up lies and said the worst and most nasty things about Mr. Cummings. As bizarre as these characterizations of Mr. Cummings may be, we are forced to wonder. And we ask you, ladies and gentlemen, and the public, to join us in a united chorus in wondering. Between Cummings and Ure, as evidenced by their life history and confirmed by records of the United Nations and other international sources, who is best fitted as a fraud, a cheat, and an unpardonable criminal? Yet, Costa never has and never will raise his mouth against his ALP puppet master Ure. Between Cummings and Ure, who has the international press doomed as merchant of death, yet Costa never has and never will raise his mouth against his ALP puppet master Ure. Between Cummings and Ure, who has the United Nations accused of being an arms dealer to kill women and children, and is a money launderer, yet Costa never has and never will raise his mouth against his ALP puppet master Ure. Between Cummings and Ure, who greased the monstrous killing machine of Charles Taylor in this country, yet Costa never has and never will raise his mouth against his ALP puppet master Ure. Between Cummings and Costa's ALP puppet master Ure, who did section 9.9 of the TRC report accused of using inhumane tactics and economic crimes to seize upon the chaos and strife in Liberia, to gain power and to amass wealth, and prolong and exacerbate the country. Yet Henry Costa never has and never will raise his mouth against Ure. Between Cummings and Costa's ALP puppet master Ure, who did the United Nations and the United States imposed travel ban and asset freeze on in the year 2000 for facilitating the arming of rebels from the maritime funds so they could rape pregnant women's belly open. Yet, Costa never has and never will raise his mouth against Ure. Between Cummings and Costa's ALP puppet master Ure, whose wealth is the fruit of economic crimes for which he is yet to answer, yet Costa never has and never will raise his mouth against Ure. Between Cummings and Costa's ALP puppet master Ure, who has made this once glorious land of liberty a bad dream for everybody today, yet Costa never has and never will raise his mouth against Ure. Between Cummings and Costa puppet master Ure, who has the international press described, quotation open, when Liberians and the local press provide a platform to him to speak on national issues, including governance, it becomes a gross betrayal of justice and accountability for his singular role in the destruction of Liberia in the 1990s. Yet, Henry Costa never has and never will raise his mouth against his ALP puppet master Ure. Between Cummings and Ure, who has the international press described as having no shred of credibility and humanity, for which tolerance by the other political leaders to even having on the table to discuss Liberia's future, much less to speak for the opposition, is considered a misplaced decision. Yet, Costa never has and never will raise his mouth against his ALP puppet master Ure. Between Cummins and Ure, who has the international press accused of selfishly manipulating and undermining the CPP by mouthing potentially credible leaders who may emerge as formidable candidates and have been using the Council of Patriots and their Indian talk show host as a tool bought and paid for. Yet, Costa never has and never will raise his mouth against Ure. Between Cummins and Costa, ALP's puppet master Ure, for who has the international community warned Liberians that the international community will stay shy of individuals like him, who has no credibility and is tainted by allegations of economic crimes. Yet, Costa never has and never will raise his mouth against Ure. Between Cummins and Costa's ALP puppet master Ure, who remains listed as a specially designated national SDN by the United States Treasury Department, with his assets frozen and being banned from traveling to the United States. Yet, Costa never has and never will raise his mouth against Ure. Between Cummins and Costa's ALP puppet master Ure, who acted upon orders from his former boss, former President Charles Taylor, to destroy Liberia, using his role as maritime commissioner to siphon millions of dollars to offshore accounts in exchange for weapons against the innocent people of Liberia. Yet, Costa never has and never will raise his mouth against Ure. Between Cummins and Costa's ALP puppet master Ure, who is supposedly the richest man in Liberia, with wealth amassed overnight with no recognizable source of his fortune. Yet, Costa never has and never will raise his mouth against Ure. Henry Costa has never raised his mouth against Ure, and you know why? Because Ure is the financier of Costa's propaganda machinery to destroy decent people, while Costa continues to shield Ure and enable Ure to benefit from his criminal behavior. Like Ure, the well-worn live from Bombay Indian talk show host, Henry Costa, did not say how and what was altered in the framework document. He did not say it, nor will he ever do so. Because Costa knows that nothing has been altered in the framework document. In fact, we all recall in 2017 when Costa similarly blemished the reputation of Ambassador Joseph Boyka, calling him dead man walking and a sadistic, unrepentant, unapologetic tribalist, unquote. Today, Costa says it was a campaign rhetoric. This is not about campaign rhetoric. This is about the lives and hard-earned reputation of decent people. Understandably, Costa and Ure have no decent reputation to protect. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, you may then wonder why Ure has manufactured these lies and why his wayward mercenary talk show host Henry Costa is trumpeting the lies to destroy Alexander Cummins and undermine the CPP. As already stated, Ure made the false allegation to foster his own selfish political motive and interest. This is what Ure knows best. And his track records and history speak for itself. Ure was executing a political ploy in a deadly playbook of lies and deception. Ure's main objective is to tarnish the name of Alexander Cummins through dubious means in the hope that it will negatively impact Cummins' chances of winning the CPP Senate mayorship. Penonai Ure, his Unity Party beneficiaries, and their few Labour Party collaborators have one and only one mindset: to frame Alexander Cummins in a deadly political witch hunt, regardless of the truth or of the future consequences to the CPP of such thoughtless action. Their plan is simple. They believe that if you want to kill a dog, it must be guilty at all costs, even if the facts prove otherwise. And if that doesn't work, then the ultimate demise of the CPP is what he seeks. Because if he can't have it, then nobody else will. Ure is threatened by Cummings and doesn't want Cummings anywhere near the CPP. Because it gets in the way of his fight to be vice president to Ambassador Joseph Boyka. Ure sees Cummings as the major obstruction to his undemocratic means to take state power. And so he must destroy Cummings so JNB, Joseph Boyka, can lead the CPP. And after 3 years as president, Ambassador Boyka will retire from the presidency due to old age and failing health, making Benana Ure an accidental president of Liberia. Imagine? From there, an accidental president Ure will then choose and handpick a Henry Costa as vice president. This is their motive. This is the motive of Costa and Ure. And this is their plan for seeking to destroy Cummings. Nothing more than that. As Ure and his family know, the Liberian people will never put him anywhere close to power in his own name. As previously stated by President George Weah. And in the mind of the Indian talk show host, Costa, this absurd fantasy that a President Ure will then choose and handpick the Henry Costa as vice president, who believes he will by then be a senator of Mozzarella County, is a great illusion. This absurd, diabolical, naked greed for power is their ultimate motive. Hence their plan for seeking to destroy Cummings, as they see him as in their way. A Cummings victory, which is now looking increasingly likely against Boyka in the CPP primary, shatters the Ure through Costa diabolically selfish plan against Liberia. Furthermore, Ure and Costa hate Cummings and the ANC and vow to destroy both through calculated and deliberate falsehood because they see Cummings as a major threat and obstruction to their undemocratic means to take state power. And this is the basis of their hatred for Cummings. The genesis of Ure's hatred for Cummings is teeth in Cummings' consistent pushback against Ure's plans to use undemocratic means through the CPP to destabilize the Weah's administration. Ladies and gentlemen, as you will recall, the ANC participated in the June 7, 2019 peaceful protest and facilitated its sources. A few days before the protest, it became clear to the ANC that Ure and his well-worn mercenary talk show host Henry Costa have ulterior motives. They wanted a single and simple peaceful protest by the people of Liberia, which was only intended to call attention to government's ills to be used to call for the resignation of President Weah. The ANC, supported by other colleagues, vehemently objected to the language of the resolution for the protest having anything to do with Weah's resignation. This disagreement led to the CPP having no single position for the June 7 protest, and no resolution was read. Let anybody prove me wrong. Unhappy and dissatisfied with the ANC and Cummings, Ure programmed and financed his well-worn mercenary talk show host to unleash a radio onslaught, denigrating Cummings and the ANC at every opportunity. This was seen in the massive attacks against the ANC and Cummings by Costa concerning the Grand Kemal County by-election seat allocation between Daba Vabla of the Unity Party and Senior Taylor of the ANC. Ure again, in collaboration with Costa, and under the canopy of the now dead COP, decided to plan another protest in January 2020. that we call We Are Step Down campaign. Ure wanted to use the protest to remove President Weah. The plan was to keep protesters in the street for as long as was possible, diverting the attention of state security. Immediately upon hearing all this, the ANC withdrew from the COP, and in October 2019, the ANC publicly announced its disassociation from the January 2020 protest to remove President Weah. The history is there, the records are there, go and find out for yourself. The ANC argued then, and still maintains, that the unconstitutional removal of an elected president, however incompetent and corrupt, was not a way of life for those of us in the ANC. We informed the world and the country that the ANC will not be a part of the protest intended to remove an elected president, and we called on the organizers to halt and abort their plans. This is public record. The ANC worked in communities and on radio stations to discourage Liberians not to attend that protest. And as God will have it, the protest was a complete failure. This action by the ANC is what has precipitated the anger, hate, and vengeance of Ure and his wayward talk show host Costa. Ladies and gentlemen, Ure and his wayward talk show host are agents of death and violence, all for wealth and political power. As you may know, during the long political struggle involving Senator Bodo Kane of Bapolu, Ure and his wayward Indian talk show host used his henchmen to reach out to us, particularly me, begging the ANC to use radical means, that is to use violence and intimidate the government so Bodo Kane will be seated as senator, as he, Ure, and Costa were doing clandestinely, without being caught and without any accountability. Again, we refused to yield to their evil designs and simply told them we are not like that. Again, and despite the unwarranted vitriolic attacks, Mr. Cummins and the ANC are even more inextricably tied to a commitment of peaceful, constitutional, democratic change in Liberia through the conduct of democratic elections consistent with the rule of law. And this unchangeable dedication will continue to honorably inform our politics and quest for political offices. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, having given you the facts surrounding the framework document and laid before you Ure's and Costa's motive, the ANC requests the following. 1. Now that ANC has provided a copy of the framework document with the NEC, filed with the NEC rather, the lawyers have provided a copy of their final amended framework document, and the National Elections Commission has provided a copy of what it has on file. Ure must be made to show to the public the provisions of the framework document that was or were allegedly altered, or he must be made to apologize to the public. I repeat, Ure must be made to show to the public the provisions of the framework document that was or were allegedly altered as he claimed, or he must be made to apologize to the public. The ANC made a formal communication to the CPP through its chair, Senator Kanga Lawrence, requesting her to make Ure to show the provisions of the framework document that were altered. But up to this date, she continues to dance around it, presumably playing to the same political playbook to tint Cummins. 2. Ambassador Joseph Nyema Brakai, as an elder in the CPP, must tell the public whether or not Ure's allegation is true that they did not approve the lawyer's work. Unless Ambassador Brakai publicly comes clean on this, we hold the belief that it is a conspiracy between Mr. Ure and Ambassador Brakai in trying to use illegal means to avoid defeat at the CPP primary. 3, the laws of the CPP must speak to the veracity of whether or not the framework document filed at the National Elections Commission of Liberia has any provision altered, removed, or added from what they submitted as a final amended framework document. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, Section 8.52 of the framework document on laws of membership, which states in part that, I quote, a party withdrawing from the alliance prior to the next presidential, legislative, and local elections shall not field candidate in its name. This principle is what the big lie is all about. This clause does not prohibit any party from leaving the CPP. If Ure and his cohorts want to leave the CPP, let them leave and form a new alliance and contest, but the ANC will remain the CPP, which was formed to provide an alternative to this roguish government for the benefit of the Liberian people. The ANC will no longer tolerate these lies of by the political vampires like Ure. Under no circumstances. Liberia first, our country deserves better. God bless you all. Thank you very much.
Distinguished members of the press, distinguished members of the press, we will be taking few questions. We will be taking a few questions, and we will expect for the media will just recognize you, and then you call your name, your media institution, and ask your question. So we will start with Spoon. Is that Spoon?
Okay. My name is James S. Gudeflomo. I report for Spoon FM and TV. I have basically two questions. Again, my name is James S. Gudeflomo. I report for Spoon FM and TV. I have two questions, basically. And the first one says, is this news conference a personal attack on Ure? Because you have accused both Senator Yombri Kanga Lawrence and Benina Ure of envying Mr. Cummings because they want to become vice president. How possible is it that the two individuals will become vice president in a single election? And the next question says, with all of the allegations you raised, why you join a collaboration with such an individual to run the affairs of the nation? Meaning the allegations you came out with against Ure. Why are you in bed with agents of death? According to you, they are.
Firstly, to respond, that was not a personal account of Ure, it was a factual account of Ure's life. Everything we stated are things that have been documented either by the United Nations panel of experts on Liberia concerning Ure's character and dealings. So it was not a personal attack on Ure, it was recitation of historical facts that have been recorded by reputable international organizations like the United Nations. And on the issue of how possible two of them can become vice president to former Vice President Walker, that is their context. The first obstruction, the first obstacle is to remove Alexander Cummings from the way. But look, that is an unholy alliance between, and it's like the fight between the hedgehog and the grass snake. Afterwards, you will see them fighting among themselves. On your question as to why, knowing all of these things about Ure, we join him. Look, when we formed the CPP, the initial discussion was between the ANC and the Liberty Party and the Unity Party. Ure and the ALP were nowhere around. It was the Unity Party, particularly Ambassador Boyka, who invited Ure because Ure supported him during the 2017 elections. And when Ure came, we of the ANC and I believe also that others in the ALP had the same belief, that Ure, and based on what he said, that he was a repentant Liberian. And so, being suspicious of his family, we were a little bit hesitant. But when we realized that Ure, having expressed commitment to abandon his past, we said to ourselves, consistent with what the Holy Bible said, that neither do we condemn thee, but go and sin no more. We told Ure, go and sin no more, do not ever repeat the old past. Unfortunately, Ure is repeating the same old past. This is why it is compelling for us in the ANC to come up now, to call him out as he is, as somebody who does not deserve 1 minute on any table to discuss the future of this country, a country that he helped to destroy, a country that he helped to steal from, and became a millionaire.
All right, thank you so much. So my name is Prince Moba, and I report for Prime FM. I have two concerns. The first one is the CPP, as in your word, indicated that it is the alternative for the Liberian people. But with the current tension, with the current attacks on individual political parties within the CPP, why then you still think that the Liberian people should take you as an alternative with all of those rigmarole? Why can't it just continue with what they had? That's the first concern. The second one is you also made mention that Honorable Boga is old, so there's a plan that Ure is pushing that he has the CPP, and when he becomes president, he resigns after 3 years so that Ure becomes president. One would think if that is the case, then why can't just Honorable Kumis okay, say you I can go with Boga after 3 years and become president? Those are my two concerns.
Thank you very much. It's a very good question. The first question is, why should Liberians trust the CPP? Knowing all of what is happening, these personal attacks. Look, these are inherent contradictions within the CPP. This is a fight between good and evil within the CPP. This is a fight between light and darkness within the CPP. But good will always triumph over evil. Take my word for it. The Liberian people should be assured that good will always triumph over evil. And the ANC, because the ANC stands on the side of morality, even though we are in minority, but I want you to believe, and I want you to go with the faith that one with God and morality on his side is the majority. So we could be in a pathetic minority of 1 against 3 individuals at the level of the political leader, but justice will win. And as Dr. Martin Luther King once said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it's bent towards justice. Eventually, justice will prevail in the CPP. On your question as to why, since we are saying that Senator Nyomble and Ure are fighting for the vice presidency, why Cummings cannot be vice president? Cummings is capable of anybody among the political leaders to be the president of this country. He has a vision, he has a plan, he has a technical know-how. This is no time to experiment with our country as if performing a laboratory test in a chemistry library. It involves the lives of Liberians. It involves bread and butter issues in this country. We want our individuals who understand the economic conditions of this country and who has a track record of turning the economy around. This is no longer time for our change. This is the time for change. Cummings is going to compete in the CPP primary, and he's going to insist and demand that the process be transparent and democratic, and Cummings will win the CPP primary, and eventually Cummings will become the president in his.
Okay, so my name is Angel Malema Maurice. Are you hearing me? My name is Angel Malema Maurice, and I report to Strongman from Nigeria. You know, according to Mr. Benedict, who is still living in his past, he called him a political
1, 2.
called vampire.
Go ahead,
You
go ahead.
also called Mr. Henry Costa names. Now to my question. Once upon a time, Mr. Cummings was seated right there and he said some battles are to be fought alone and you need to walk alone. This is it. If the collaborating political parties has individuals that are political vampires in majority, why does the ANC still waiting for to leave?
I repeat, if the collaborating political parties has the majority of political vampires,
Why is the ANC still there? Or what are they waiting for?
No, that's a good question. Look, the CPP does not have a majority of political vampires.
But you listed all of them.
Hold on 1 minute, I'm coming. I know what I said, I'm going to repeat that. The CPP does not have the majority of political vampires. There are a few individuals at the level of the executive committees of the other three parties who are behaving like political vampires. These individuals are not in majority. There are many partisans of the United Party. There are many partisans of the All Liberal Party. There are many partisans of the Liberty Party who support the ANC and Alexander Cummings. It is because of the fear of the massive support that Cummings receives and continually enjoy from their own partisans. This is why they're striking fear in the hearts of the leaders. And this is why the handful of clique at the level of the executive committee, not all of the executive committees. I repeat, not all of the executive committees, just few individuals at the level of the executive committees continue to conspire and orchestrate all kinds of maneuvers to honor my Cummings. So on your question why we can't leave, the ANC will not leave. If they don't like it, they will leave. As I said in our statement, the ANC will remain, the CPP will ensure that we go to primaries and we defeat them. If they want to leave, the CPP let them leave.
Hello? The next question, call your name.
All right. Good afternoon, sir. My name is Emmanuel Jiraga Gaspar Sr. and I report for the Independent newspaper. My first question has to do with your characterization of Mr. Ure. I just recorded your Latin of negative characterization of Mr. Benin Ure. And with all these allegations, what makes you think you cannot be held accountable or a guilty verdict cannot be against the ANC by guilt or association, by associating with a man in Calgary Rouse to being a man? And the beat to that question is, in your deliberation, I want you to provide clarity on the allegation of altering some provision of the framework document. You said at some point in time, you said the legal committee did an amendment, and at other point in time, you said the independent team. So I want to know, is the legal team composed of members of the full collaborating party? And then last week, could you give us the configuration, how many legal persons from each party will represent on that committee? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. Let me answer the question from the bottom. So, for the composition of the legal committee, I'm not in a position to name individuals. I challenge you to go and ask the CPP chairman, Senator Yamli Kanga Lawrence. She knows all of them. Currently, she administers the chat room for the lawyers. If those lawyers are not members of the CPP, they are not members of constituent parties of the CPP. Those are independent lawyers, reputable individuals who have held prominent positions in this country, and I'm not going to name them because it is not my responsibility to name them. But go and ask Yamli Kanga Lawrence. She knows that if she wants to release that name, it's up to her. On the issue of altering the CPP document, I think I've dealt with that sufficiently. No document was altered. Nobody on the planet Earth can prove that any document was altered. I challenge you and Costa to point to one single fact that was altered in the framework document and provide evidence. And I challenge you, members of the press, to now run to Europe to don't ask him any question. Tell him to only show you the provision that was altered. And let him compare the old document and the lawyer's document with that of the document that was filed with the Elections Commission. That's all we want from Europe. He has never done that. He will never do that. So why we associate with Europe? I've said that over and over.
No, the question is why you shouldn't be held accountable in the code of public opinion like guilt by association.
Well,
the Liberian people will hold you accountable and say, oh, but you're associated with US, so we cannot trust you out. What you say to people who think in that direction?
But look, I said that earlier. I said US said he repented. And we said, look, neither do we condemn thee because we are Christians, but go and say no more. So if the Liberian people believe in justice, they should know that we forgave you. But now that the snake, the personal snake is raising its ugly head, we now have to hold him accountable.
Okay, so thank you.
So we are taking 3 more, 1 from there, 4, 1 from here, 1 from here, and 1 from this side. So we'll take him and take you.
Right, so thank you. My name is Peter Boyuga. I'm a Liberian journalist, and I work for BC Online Television. You presented to us, a couple of sheets, and you said that that is the official CPP framework document. Can you state for us on the record? There has been a couple of outcry for the submission of this framework document. Can you state for us on the record, when was the framework document presented to the political leader of the CPP? And a tool to that is, your earlier sessions, they've all verified to us that there is actually a war for war into the CPP. And according to you, the CPP is the Liberian people alternative. If you're having this existing war for wars, you think the people are going to entrust their power into you? Thank you.
Okay, so the question is, when was the framework document presented to the Liberian people? So after I said that, I cover all of those points in a document, in my press statement. After the framework document was signed, and all of the political leaders realized that it needed some revision, and as evidenced by the audio recording I played from URE, they constituted a legal committee. The legal committee worked on the document and brought it back to them. Gave each party a copy. After, and they had timelines as I indicated, to go through and send feedback and send it back to the legal committee. The legal committee incorporated all of their feedbacks and sent it back to them. It was presented to each political party. On the basis of the fact that the document was in the possession of each political party, the original document, Alexander Kumi sent a notice for them to use the original in their own possessions to drive their resolutions, party resolutions, verifying, affirming, and confirming the authenticity of the framework document in their possession. Each party, having reviewed the original document of the framework document, signed resolution, and on the week of July 6th, brought the resolutions affirming their acceptance of the framework document, which was still in their possession, to the CP, to the ANC. We used our resolutions and filed the resolutions to the Elections Commission. Recently, when this controversy started, Yomli Kanga Lawrence requested the National Elections Commission to present her a copy of the document, the framework document that was filed, and she received it. Lawrence Kanga, the Elections Commission gave it to Yomli Kanga Lawrence, the document that was filed. I'm 1 minute, let me finish. She also requested the lawyers, the independent lawyers, to give her a copy of the one they revised. The lawyers gave it to her. Then at a meeting of the NAC, they asked Mr. Cummings to provide a copy of the version in his possession. We also gave it to them. And I just showed you the receipt as exhibit, I think 6 or something like that. When it was given to them, it was on the 13th of... to give it to them for the second time. It was on the 13th of September. I think 13th of September, according to the exhibit. For the second time, yes.
1, 2.
And you also say it's word for word in the war in the CPP with the Liberian people. Trust us. I already explained that. This is a fight between light and darkness, good and evil. The Liberian people will trust good at the end of the day.
1, 2. Okay, my name is Blamoto. I report for Bana FM. The question is, without both Ambassador Joseph Boakai and Senator Yomli Kanga Lawrence breaking Mr. Ure to book amidst those allegations as you claim, will you not mind disclosing to the press some wicked deeds, two of them, both Bwaka and Kanga Lawrence, some of those deeds that they do before, while you are waiting on them, as in the case of Ure, before telling the Liberian people, in a case where tomorrow, Mr. Bwaka comes up with another claims against the ANC. Secondly, you have Kanga Lawrence coming with another claims. Are you waiting for those times to come before you start talking about the bad deed that you're doing with Mr. Ure today? And secondly, Costa was talking about block voting. Now he's talking about framework document. What do you also make of that?
Firstly, all you need to know as of this point about the dealings of Ambassador Bwaka and Yamli Kanga Lawrence with respect to the current controversy is what I've already told you. And I'm not in a position to tell you any other thing beyond that point. Secondly, about Costa's block voting narrative, which I didn't even address because it's of no relevance to this discussion. But as I've always said to other people, that block voting thing is a conspiracy to honor my Cummings. They know they will not win at the CPP primary if people vote individually. So they want for people to vote in their houses and they bring resolution to the primary. But as I've always said, that block voting concept violates 3 articles of the Liberian Constitution. 1, Article 50 of the Liberian Constitution requires that elections voting in this country should be by universal adult suffrage, meaning one man, one vote. It does not mean one man voting through resolution. Secondly, Article 77 of the Liberian Constitution requires that all voting be done by secret ballot in this country. Secret ballot means your ma and pa not even supposed to know who you're voting for, much less your political party. It is between you and your God. So if they are forcing people to go and sign a resolution, in essence they are violating the Constitution because they want to know who those people are voting for. The second point, the third point I want to make is Article 81 of the Liberian Constitution clearly states that every contestant, every candidate shall have the right to canvass for votes. If they carry their candidates behind a horse and made them to sign a resolution, how will Cummings be able to even tell the people why they should vote for him? So that because their plan violates the Liberian Constitution. It's already there on the rifle. It's never going to solve this issue.
All right, I think I can amplify my voice. My name is Moses Collier, and I work for Red Power FM. Councillor Toe, I know you very well, and I know the mission of the ANC. You as a human rights lawyer that believes in justice and liberty for all, don't you see it prudent for the ANC to prosecute or take to court Mr. Benina Ure on behalf of the Liberian people based on his characterization by you? Number 2, from all indication, it is glaringly clear that the primary that is stated for December this year of the CPP might be flawed. It might come with huge controversy and probably some cheating. Do you think the ANC standard bearer can win the primary? And if he doesn't win, will you walk out of the arrangement? Thank you.
Firstly, I did not say the CPP primary will be marred by cheating and voting. I said the ANC will remain, the CPP will go to the primary, will combat any attempt to cheat. And will stay in there and ensure that there will be no cheating. And will ensure that everything will be transparent and democratic. And at the end, the ANC will win. But to your question as to whether in the event the ANC loses, Alexander Cummings, which is not likely, which is far remote from what is going to happen. But assuming that were the will of God, Alexander Cummings has said and are supporting 100% that so long the process within the CPP primary is fair, honest, democratic, and transparent, he will abide by any decision the Liberian people make at that primary. He will support whoever emerges as a leader. we extend our same challenge to Ambassador Joseph Nima Burka to tell the Liberian people whether or not he will support whoever emerges democratically from the CPP primary. He has not done that. And I urge you, I challenge you, members of the press, just as Cummings has done, to hold Ambassador Burka to his word, whether or not he will support whoever emerges from the CPP primary democratically.
The prosecution of Ure.
The ANC, Cummings is on record. There's a press statement to that effect that he will not condone impunity in this country. He's going to ensure that all those who are culpable in this country must answer for their deeds. Ure is no exception.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This press conference was meant for an hour. We know you were exhausted, but we have done with it, and thank you. You can now meet with
So folks, we'd like to say thanks for watching KMTV. This is how we come to an end of our live broadcast here. My name is Makere Gamoyi Frima. I'd like to say goodbye from the Eternity National Headquarters here in Cinco. Thanks and goodbye.